Good morning, everyone. So glad you could join us. Here you are, Dr. Taylor.
I started looking into the principles, instructions in John chapter 15. I thought that's where we were going to go next, because after all, we just finished John chapter 14. But I only got as far as verse 5, that we'll read in just a moment. When I got caught up in this is a cycle that appears all through the scriptures that would be good to learn. Because it appears in our lives, or it can. So real quick, here's the cycle to pay attention to. Revelation, obedience, confirmation, and blessing. Let me say it again. Revelation, obedience, confirmation, and blessing. Here's how it works. Revelation is what God shows you. And when that is met with your obedience, because that's the only step you can take, meaning you're going to do whatever He just showed you, you're going to take action, that's obedience, then your obedience is followed swiftly by confirmation. And we'll talk more about what all these things mean in a minute. And then the blessing flows. So revelation, when met with obedience, is followed swiftly by confirmation, and then the blessing flows. We'll talk about this 4-part cycle shortly. But first, let's look at the starting point for today in John 15:5, where Yeshua says, I am the grapevine, you are the branches. He who is remaining in me, and I in him, this one is bringing forth much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Yeshua is using a metaphor. Obviously, I'm the grapevine, you're the branches. That's pretty easy to grasp. But the last part is what stopped me in my tracks, where he says, apart from me, you can do nothing. In other words, without Yeshua's life in us, we can't really be productive in terms of finding and fulfilling the Father's purpose for our lives. We may be productive in fulfilling our own purposes and goals, but heaven's view is almost always entirely different. And just as an example, I thought I was on a roll when I had a great wellness practice, helping tons of people, teaching my specialty to other practitioners from all over the world. But it didn't take long after Barbara and I were married that the Father literally began dismantling my kingdom, so to speak. So everything I thought I was about changed. And why did He do that? He dismantled my kingdom to set me apart for His purpose. He did the same with Barbara, who had 4 athletic apparel stores and 10 more on the drawing board at her peak in business. When you hear her story, however, it's clear that the Father had other plans that took her from a millionaire to leaving with a suitcase to go wherever the Spirit of God led her. And she went from serving her purpose to serving His. When we got together, I went from serving my purpose to serving His. There's nothing more satisfying than finding and fulfilling the purpose for which you were created. So when your head hits the pillow at night, you know you've done exactly what the Spirit showed you that day, and your sleep is wonderfully restful. If you wake up in the morning, you have more to do, and the Spirit of God will show you every step, one at a time. If you don't wake up, then others could conclude, if they were looking with the eyes of the Spirit, that you had accomplished your purpose. There is no rule in science or Scripture that we have to be sick, hooked up to machines, hurting, and being just miserable on the way out. We're not going to get out of this alive, unless you're alive when the Lord returns. The Scripture says it's appointed once for man to die.
This is Hebrews 9:27. And inasmuch as it is reserved to the men to be dying once, yet after this is a judging. Thus Christ also being offered once for the bearing of the sins of many will be seen a second time by those awaiting Him apart from sin for salvation through faith.
So again, being led by the Spirit, when you get done with your day, you know you've done all you were shown to do that day. Now it's time to rest. If you wake up, then you know you've got more to do. If you don't wake up, then you will wake up in His presence whenever that is. You will have no concept of time in between. Close your eyes in this realm, open them up in the next. Only reason I'm even sharing that with you is because, look, let's be honest, there's no guarantee that you wake up tomorrow. That's written nowhere. And in these fragile bodies, they can die anytime. So we'd best not take tomorrow for granted. Best to know God today, to listen to His voice today, to do what He shows you to do today, and to close your eyes. And if you get to wake up in His presence, you'll know you did what you were supposed to do. Then living to God's purpose becomes a flow of revelation, obedience, confirmation, and blessing. When the Father shows you something to do, that's revelation, as I said before. Your step is obedience. In fact, throughout that whole 4-step cycle, your only step is obedience. Just do what He says. You can trust Him. He'll never steer you wrong. The Spirit of God will never lead you into a tar pit. And then He follows up your obedience with confirmation, which can take all kinds of forms. But it's usually something you can see or hear that lets you know you took the step He showed you. You know, it's almost, I don't know if you had this experience growing up when you went to the dentist or the doctor and you got a lollipop or something at the end of that appointment. It was like a treat, a reward. That's what confirmation feels like to me. It's like a reward for taking the only step you can take after God shows you something. Then He says, way to go, here's how you know that was right. Then the blessing can flow, which may be as simple as living in the peace of flowing from one revelation to the next. Because confirmation usually flows swiftly. I don't know that I've ever seen it take more than 3 days. Sometimes it's hours. But somewhere in that 3-day period, at least in our experience, we've always seen there's the confirmation for what we heard, and we took our step. Now God can show. So the blessing can flow after that, from one revelation to the next, as you automatically act on the Father's directions, noting the confirmations. Look, this really just is so peaceful. It's literally like basking on a float in a pool on a summer day with the breeze on your face, the sound of the birds in the trees, as He shows you the next step to take or another step to take. And the cycle can continue unbroken as long as you do your part, called obedience. Because that cycle will stop in its tracks. I mean, just come to a dead stop when you don't do what God showed you to do. We had a friend, this is years ago, who called once, and she was really agonizing about the next step to take. Somebody had called her and said, would you come pastor this assembly, this church? Or was to be a youth pastor, something like that. She was being asked to serve in a position, a paid position, and she was living from hand to mouth, a paid position in some church in some other state. And she said, I'm just waiting for God to confirm that that's where He wants me to go. I said, you've missed the whole point. You can't He's not going to show you a doggone thing until you do the one step you can do, which is go check this out. They're asking you to come. They're willing to pay you. You got nothing else going on. Yeah, it's a move. Okay, well, can He not do that? But He's not going to show you some great confirmation until you take the step you know to take. Get going. Get down there. Do this. And then what? Then you'll see confirmation. In fact, probably about the time you simply decide to take that step and begin to get your affairs in order to make that move, you'll see confirmation. It could be something as simple as all of a sudden U-Haul has a truck sale where you get to take the trip for $10. I don't know what it'll be, but I know you're never going to find it waiting. He's waiting for you, not the other way around. It's going to do you no good to wait for Him. He's already done His part. Now you do yours. No matter how small or how large the matter, just take every step He shows you. That's obedience. And as Barbara says, obedience is always the dividing issue. So here's what I have to go further into this, because I tell you, you'll see this cycle. It's not written in the scriptures specifically. When you read the daily Bible in chronological order, I'll bet you anything, by the second time through, you're going to start seeing the Father's personality. You'll be able to spy out his fingerprints. You'll learn what he has patience for, what he has no patience for, what he likes, what he doesn't like. You learn. That's what happened to me the second time I went through it. Just reading the stories, I saw so much about him that, to be honest with you, just made me fall in love with him. It was just so sweet, so kind. Now, I know there are plenty of stories of total destruction by his order. But there again, you see his personality. But the point I want to make here is that all through the scriptures, especially the Old Testament, when you find a figure whom God has chosen and showed him or her to do something, that was revelation. Their obedience, that is, that they took the step they were shown to take. Like Abraham, my goodness. All God said was, go out into the land that I will give you. I'm going from memory here. That I will also give to your descendants after you. And I'll make a great nation out of you. But all Abraham heard was, go out. And God would show. That's it. No map. Not even a destination. Just go out. And Abraham just did that. And so what happened was, when Abraham reached the land, something changed in him, and he pitched his tents. That's it. I'm not leaving from here. Abraham was shown, go out. He did. He went out. That's obedience. That's his step. Confirmation came all along. He prospered all along the journey. And when he reached the land that God was going to give him anyway, then other events began to happen, but he entered into the blessing. The blessing may not happen immediately. Confirmation can, but the blessing may wait. God may show you another revelation before a blessing is occurring. But listen, just getting another revelation from God is blessing enough. When you hear his voice, man, oh man, you're never going to forget it.
One of the clearest examples of this to me is when Abraham sent his servant to get a bride for his son Isaac.
Oh, yeah.
So that's from Genesis 24.
Revelation, obedience, confirmation, blessing. If you learn this, two things are going to happen. You're going to hear God's voice. He's going to show you something. I don't know when it'll be, but he's going to show you something. It might be in the next 24 hours for all I know. And I promise you, whatever he shows you, do. Take action. Do whatever he shows. And watch for the confirmation. And then listen for the next revelation. Because as long as you do your part, God will continue to show you a next step. And to me, that's enough of a blessing. Now, there may be a whole lot more blessing that flows from that. But this cycle is so important because in it is the joy of hearing God speak to you inside your spirit, inside yourself. We're sharing this with you because this will really help you when it comes to living by faith, living by the revelation of God. This is so important. Barbara's example is Abraham sending his servant to go get a wife for his son Isaac. So let's see what happens.
So it's Genesis 24. Now, Abraham was old, advanced in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in every way. Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his household, who had charge of all that he owned, "Please place your hand under my thigh, and I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I live, but you will go to my country and to my relatives and take a wife for my son Isaac." That's the revelation. The servant said to him, "Suppose the woman is not willing to follow me to this land. Should I take your son back to the land from where you came?" The servant's just wanting to know his parameters. He's heard what Abraham, his master, said, and now he's just wanting the parameters, however it goes. Then Abraham said to him, "Beware that you do not take my son back there. The Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my birth, and who spoke to me and swore to me, saying, to your descendants I will give this land. He will send his angel before you, and you will take a wife for my son from there. So Abraham is setting this entire miracle in process. But if the woman is not willing to follow you, then you will be free from this my oath. Only do not take my son back there. So the servant placed his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master and swore to him concerning this matter. Then the servant took 10 camels from the camels of his master and set out with a variety of good things of his master's in his hand. And he arose and went to Mesopotamia, to the city of Nahor. He made the camels kneel down outside the city by the well of water at evening time, the time when women go out to draw water. And he said, O Lord, the God of Abraham, my master, please grant me success today and show loving kindness to my master Abraham. Behold, I am standing by the spring, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Now may it be, and he's setting up the parameters, now may it be that the girl to whom I say, please let down your jar so that I may drink, and who answers, drink, and I will water your camels also. May she be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac, and by this I will know that you have shown loving kindness to my master.
So let me just stop you right there. He's acting on the revelation. He's being obedient. He's doing what he's been shown to do and told to do. Now, he has in this case, he knows that the women are coming out, and he's asking God now for the confirmation by which he'll know he's on the right track. So we've already got revelation, obedience. Now we're looking at confirmation. Go ahead.
Before he had finished speaking, behold, Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor, came out with her jar on her shoulder. The girl was very beautiful, a virgin, and no man had had relations with her. And she went down to the spring and filled her jar and came up. Then the servant ran to meet her and said, please let me drink a little water from your jar. She said, drink, my lord. And she quickly lowered her jar to her hand and gave him a drink. Now when she had finished giving him a drink, she said, I will draw also for your camels until they have finished drinking. So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough and ran back to the well to draw, and she drew for all his camels. Now that shows what kind of woman Rebekah was. Meanwhile, the man was gazing at her in silence to know whether the Lord had made his journey successful or not. I mean, she just did what he had prayed, so I don't know why he's gazing so much in silence. Okay, he's being with the Lord on this. When the camels had finished drinking, the man took a gold ring weighing a half shekel and 2 bracelets for her wrist weighing 10 shekels in gold, and said, whose daughter are you? Please tell me. Is there room for us to lodge in your father's house? She said to him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor. Again she said to him, we have plenty. This is the blessing of the Lord that makes rich, and he adds no sorrow to it. We have plenty of both straw and feed and room to lodge in. Then the man bowed low and worshiped the Lord. He said, blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his loving kindness and his truth toward my master. As for me, the Lord has guided me in the way to the house of my master's brothers.
So now he's seen the blessing. He's got the confirmation. Now he's seen the blessing. They're going to house him. And the story goes, I don't know if it's important to read all of it, but it ends up that Rebekah goes back with the servant to become Isaac's wife.
Then Rebekah's family blessed her. They knew this was God. They blessed Rebekah and said to her, may you, our sister, become thousands of 10,000s, and may your descendants possess the gate of those who hate them. Then Rebekah rode with her maids, and they mounted the camels and followed the man. So the servant took Rebekah and departed. And then it goes on. Now Isaac had come from going to Beer-lahai-roi for he was living in the Negev. Isaac went out to meditate in the field toward evening, and he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, camels were coming. Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she dismounted from the camel. She said to the servant, "Who is that man walking in the field to meet us?" And the servant said, "He is my master." Then she took her veil and covered herself. The servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. Then Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent, and he took Rebekah. She became his wife, and he loved her. Thus Isaac was comforted after his mother's death.
Ta-da!
Yeah, but the part I left out was where they went, the servant and Rebekah went to her family, and everyone, the word of God, it was all confirmed by the Spirit of God that this was what God was doing. And they blessed her on her way out.
Yeah. While you were reading, I was remembering what we went through the other day in Paul's writing, or not in Paul's writing, but in the book of Acts, when Yeshua called Paul. That's one of the most profound revelations we've ever seen.
Yeah.
That was confirmed, as I recall, confirmed very quickly when Ananias came with the word of the Lord and healing for Paul's eyes. And then Paul did from then on whatever he was shown to do. So there's an Old Testament example, there's a New Testament example. There are tons of these.